excuse me, a little bit congested. I'm going to try and power through it. Last Saturday, on December 14th, we held a 3-round kill team event here in Burlington, Vermont. The Vermont Gaming Academy in the mall here is where we usually do our gaming, and they've been really supportive of tabletop gaming. A year and a half ago, they didn't carry any mini products. They primarily did card games and board games, but they were really happy to have our group start hosting casual play nights and have been really supportive of us trying to build a community there. In that intervening time, now we're able to regularly host events there for Kill Team and 40K with good turnouts, and VGA has started carrying more and more tabletop mini products, which is really great. They've been so supportive that the store actually sprung for one of the Seasons of War Store Championship kits for Kill Team that includes a little glass trophy. So Will, who joined me on the last AAR, decided to run an end-of-year Store Championship event for us. Excuse me. We had some folks drop due to holidays and real-life stuff going on, but we still ended up with 8 players. Ran a 3-round event. I kept going back and forth on whether or not I wanted to play a different team since I've won a lot locally with Blades of Cain, but at the end of the day, I just didn't have enough time to finish painting some of the other teams that I've been slowly working on, so I decided to rebase some more Dire Avengers and to play Blades of Cain, but to try and play a bit differently than I normally would, try some different equipment, Exarch loadouts, and to get a little more creative with Dance of Death plays. Just because it's a little bit different from last edition to this edition, previously, Kill Team had a roster system. If you're not familiar, the way that worked was you had a roster of 20 operatives that you would bring with you to tournaments. And so while I have a large Eldar collection and have 30 Dire Avengers from playing Hail of Doom, I only had 2 of them rebased to the right base size and, ready to go for Kill Team, because in my 20-man roster, I only ever brought 2 Dire Avenger Warriors last edition. So I'd been a little bit slow getting things properly rebased for the new edition. Finally got around to doing that. The rest of the field for the tournament was another Blades of Cain player, 2 Angels of Death, 1 Death Corps of Krieg, 1 Kazarkan, 1 Hernkin Jaegers, and 1 Commandos. Round 1, I was matched into Rob playing Angels of Death. The mission was loot on an open board map using a lot of Warcry terrain, so not one of the official GW layouts. My opponent was primarily using his ranged options, taking an Intercessor Sergeant with a Power Sword, the Eliminator Sniper, an Assault Intercessor Grenadier, Intercessor Gunner, and 2 Intercessor Warriors. Excuse me. He was playing, pretty ranged setup for Chapter Tactics as well, with Severe and Saturate on his bolt weapons. Because the terrain had a fair bit of light terrain in the midboard, I took 2 Striking Scorpion Warriors to use one with a Gloom to safely stage in risky spots, 2 Dire Avenger Warriors, 3 Howling Banshee Warriors, and a Dire Avenger Exarch with Twin Shirk and Catapults. I took Contain as my tac op since I had 3 Dire Avengers and access to it, since my opponent was playing a setup that I figured wouldn't want to cross the center line of the table, and because I outnumbered him, I could try to punish him if he tried to deny me points on Contain. Turning point 1, we staged models, then I used one with a Gloom to put a Striking Scorpion where I could use Dance of Death, the following turning point to swap it out with a Howling Banshee if I won initiative. Now I telegraphed this to my opponent pretty hard, since he's not as familiar with Blades of Cain, really measuring things out from the Scorpion, this is how far I can go. So he used a counteract move to reposition his sniper back a couple inches to where he'd be out of melee range. And, turn 1 was fairly uneventful. Turning point 2, Rob had to start moving some of his intercessors up towards the midboard to try and score, and had no really great safe way to do it, because he could either move pretty far forward to where I could then potentially charge or throw my crack grenades, or he could move up into some light cover where my Exarch could shoot at him from vantage. He chose to move forward since I wasn't going to offer him up any shots elsewhere, risking the damage on his leader. And unfortunately, I then went with my Exarch, and I rolled really hot with a Ceaseless Rending shot, using Slicing Hurricane to move and do 2 shoot actions and then get back out of line of sight. Between the 2 shoot actions, I put 14 points of damage on his leader with my Exarch, because Ceaseless and Rending sometimes just works way better than it should. So, really kind of started me out ahead of the game on trading models. Rob moved some of his models up, but I stayed fairly safe, tapping points, then moving back to where I didn't present good shooting targets. And at the end of the turning point, I still had my Striking Scorpion with one with a Gloom staged to deliver a Banshee, as well as a Howling Banshee that I threw into his deployment, expecting that he might have taken Contain. Now, Rob wasn't playing Contain, and he was able to use Wrath of Vengeance to reposition his sniper 2 inches and shoot at my Banshee, leaving her on 2 wounds. So, interesting turn 2, with me starting to take a lead in material and points, but with one Howling Banshee kind of hung out to dry, dead to anything that targets her, and with a potential Dance of Death play set up. In turning point 3, I went first and was able to Dance of Death that Banshee up, use Acrobatic to charge his sniper. It took me 2 fight actions to finish him off because Rob had swapped one of his set chapter tactics over to Dueler. But from there, the rest of the game was pretty straightforward, as Rob tried to push up the board, but down 2 of his best models with his leader and his sniper gone. I was able to control the board, keep him out of my half of the board, and score the loot points. So I ended up losing quite a few models during the game, but I was able to take pretty good trades, ended the game with a solid win, maxing out my points for the first round, and winning 21-9. Excuse me. Round 2, I drew Kale, who was also playing Blades of Cain. We were on into the dark, and this particular board is one of Will's. He got one of the printed Fabricator's Lair Eldari ITD sets, so it was really fun to play the mirror match against Blades of Cain on the thematic terrain. Since the game was at our local club, the board did have some of the scatter terrain, the extra kind of wall flanges that hook into the pillars. Just that's how we generally run ITD here. Personally, I prefer it with the extra terrain pieces. I think it makes it a bit more interesting. But it is going to be a little bit different than kind of the competitive standard in a lot of places. Here I took the Scorpion Exarch with a Claw, 5 Howling Banshees, and 2 Dire Avengers. Kale took a Dire Avenger Exarch with Twin Shuriken Catapults, 3 Scorpions, a Dire Avenger, and 3 Howling Banshees. The mission was one where you scored at the end of the game. I forgot to write down which one it was, but it didn't really super matter because it's a really lethal matchup. All of our models are really good at killing each other. So I planned on taking Overrun, making that my primary, and to play for kills, since most elf-on-elf violence doesn't leave many models left at the end of the game to contest points. I figured if I can take a lead early and trade hard, score Overrun in the course of playing aggressively, I ought to win. Kale took Confirm Kill, and I think that ultimately the TAC-op choice and having a slightly more proactive game plan to trade made the difference in this game for me. Both of us were also trying out the portable barricades on our Exarchs. Mine with the portable barricade and one with a Gloom for Super Conceal makes it kind of difficult to get rid of. And he had his Exarch with the Twin Shuriken Catapults, in Conceal, rolling up the board and then walking into the central room and blasting. So it made for some interesting moments, and really kind of changed how the matchup played, having somebody that could kind of count on being on Conceal and getting into position. The 2 most interesting moments of this match really involved my Exarch, who never did end up doing a whole lot on his own activations. Kale won initiative turning point 2, and was just inside of range to charge my Exarch with one of his Striking Scorpions. But I was able to use the Rune of Shielding to survive and kill his Scorpion on its own activation. From there, we started trading pieces very quickly, staying roughly even on material, but I was able to score a few points more than him because I was able to keep some models on points where he had already activated his threats in those areas, scoring Overrun. Kale eventually took out my Exarch, hiding behind his barricade, but in order to do it, he had to use one of his Banshees to move and dash to get within 2 inches in order to shout at him. He got the kill, but it sort of hung his last operative out on that side of the board to dry. After a very fast game, I came out ahead 13-7. We were done way before any of the other tables. My biggest takeaways from this game were that I could have played a bit less aggressively at 1 or 2 points, and it probably would have been better for me. I won in the end, but could have scored higher, and neither of the crack grenades that I took did a single wound. They probably should have done a bit more on average dice, but I could have played in a less risky way and not had to worry about the dice as much. I, did some things where I charged, fought, and then tried to throw a crack grenade to get a greedy kill. There's always things to improve on. I probably should have taken some more sure plays instead of going for the most explosive options in a given moment. So, round 3, I was matched up with Silas, who was running Hernken Jaegers on Volkus, and the mission was Coordinates. Hernken Jaegers is sort of a weird matchup, especially on Volkus. If he gets a chance to shoot many shotgun shots, I'm going to have a really tough time. It's an excellent profile to kill elf bodies, hitting on 2s, 4/4 damage, and he has a strategic ploy to reduce his damage, which is quite strong, and messes with our damage breakpoints in melee. But the Hernken Jaegers are significantly slower than Blades of Cain. They're move 5 instead of 7, and that can really be abused on Volkus due to things like having to climb the walls and then having the accessible doors and the close quarter rules. So Howling Banshees aren't ideal into Hernken, despite being really good on Volkus, because with the Hernken almost definitely taking plasma knives and having lethal 5-up on their melee attacks, they have good potential to parry your crits, which can put you in a situation where you may charge, and even if you roll 2 crits, you fail to kill the Hernken Jaeger because they take the first crit but have the damage and then parry your second one, and then normal hit isn't enough to kill them at that point. So I decided to take more striking scorpions than I normally would, since Manda Blaster's +2 normal hits kills a Hernken Jaeger through that damage reduction. And Strike and Fade is really important for avoiding the ranged pieces like the sniper. I took a Dire Avenger Exarch with Twin Shuriken Catapults again, a Dire Avenger Warrior, 2 Howling Banshee Warriors, and 4 Striking Scorpion Warriors. I think the Howling Banshees are still a useful tool because of Acrobatic and Rain of Tears, and the Exarch is really good for cleaning up anything that does go unengaged to try and trade back into Blades of Cain. But this is also a matchup where playing all Scorpions would be solid. But since this game determined the winner of the tournament, I decided to stick with kind of my comfort zone and played a mixed team. Since I don't play all Striking Scorpions very often, I feel like even in the matchups where it's fine, I would generally rather have the extra range that Dire Avengers provide, and so I don't end up going with the Mono Scorpion team. Excuse me. So, as far as Tac Ops, I took Overrun and made it my primary op. Silas decided that his best chance to win the game was to prioritize the kill op, and I forget exactly what his Tac Op was offhand. I think it may have been Confirm Kill. No, I don't think they get access to Confirm Kill. I'm not 100% sure, and I do apologize for that, but I didn't take pictures of the cards, so it is what it is. But this third game was a little bit one-sided. Since I was able to stage very safely, behind doors, I was able to be in positions where my opponent couldn't really get into the strongholds all the way across them to the doors to start hatchway fighting me. And because I'm behind heavy terrain, he couldn't shoot me. But Blades of Cain are fast enough that I was generally able to charge through those doors to the opposite side of the strongholds to fight him. And because the Striking Scorpions are quite reliable at killing his Hernken in melee, that puts him in a position where he basically has a choice to make. He can either stay off the point and kind of concede the crit op to me, or try to push up and take those points, try to get his kill op, which is his primary, but I can start trading into him really hard and potentially get a lot of 2-for-1s, or kill things and then dash into heavy cover with Strike and Fade. So, basically what happened here was he would move up, and then, I would charge with a Scorpion. He would move something else up to try and shoot at it, and then I could just charge in with something else, or, have the Dire Avengers pop up, shoot with lethal 5-up, and then dash back. And so I was able to trade really effectively. There were 2 big points where the game could have swung against me. Once early, where I had taken a Howling Banshee on the right side of the board, and had used acrobatic, gone across the stronghold, and doorway fought against one of his models and killed it. And kind of put him in a weird position where he couldn't then really push into the stronghold. He was, however, he had a ladder placed nearby. He was able to make one of his warriors with a shotgun APL-3, and between a move and a dash, get into the stronghold, kind of up the ladder and then dropping down, and then shoot a shotgun at my Howling Banshee. Unfortunately for Silas, he didn't roll great. I think he got 3 hits. I saved 1 and then used a rune of shielding, so I only took 4 damage and ended up surviving. And that Banshee didn't do a whole lot else from that point, but it still kept him from going through that door and getting to where he needed to be. On turning point 3, the second point where the game could have swung more in his favor, he was able to move his leader up to that same door where I had my other Howling Banshee staged at that point, and tried to fight her through the hatchway. And on his attack roll, and just rolled 4 1s, which is really unfortunate. And to Silas's great credit, he was an excellent sportsman about it. Took a second, looked at it, and was like, "Well, what are you gonna do about that, right?" And that's obviously a super frustrating situation. Yeah, and against most other teams, you might end up spending some command points there in order to get enough damage to finish that fight. But against Blades of Cain, if you've got 1 command point open for contempt, you can shut that down. And, sometimes you go through an entire game without ever using contempt. I don't believe I used it in the second round. It just didn't really come up. But in situations like this, it can be absolutely backbreaking. So his leader had to burn his once per game ability, remaining alive on 1 wound instead of dying. And then my Howling Banshee, on her activation, just went and fought him through the door, landed 1 hit, and finished him off. So, actually, no, my apologies. I didn't. I moved and dashed a striking scorpion around to shoot him with a pistol on the next activation. But he was on 1, and so it was fairly easy. So I was able to win round 3, 18-9, and ended up undefeated in first place. One of my goals going into the tournament was to intentionally look for Dance of Death plays and to try out the Dire Avenger Exarch more seriously. And I did both of those things. Both were fairly successful, so I was very excited about that. And because of Vermont Gaming Academy being so supportive, like I mentioned earlier at the start of the video, they'd gotten the tournament kit. So I've got a little Store Champion glass trophy. Unfortunately, it's hard to really get it to focus on here great, just given the lighting in our second bedroom. But pretty fun to come away with that. So that went well. For a while, I've been thinking about playing a bit less Blades of Cain locally. I ended up obviously playing them last weekend, and I'm going to be playing them at another event in Boston soon. But after that, I might play some other stuff a bit locally. I've got some Hand of the Archon that I finished painting up recently that I think actually look really cool, so I'm excited to give those a try. And there's a couple of other local players that, having seen me win a number of local things with Blades of Cain, are really excited to give the team a try. So I might end up loaning out my Aspect Warriors at our Wednesday nights. Just have other people give the team a try, see how they like it. And I think that'd be pretty cool, right? Part of the reasons I'm doing videos on this channel is to tell people about how to play the team, get folks excited about it. So any opportunity I have to do that, especially locally, is just gravy. As far as upcoming events, on January 4th and 5th, Everwinter is running a GT in Boston, Mass. This is, I believe, the first time Everwinter has had kill teams, so it's really exciting. And I think they're just about up to their cap of 28 players. Now, I'm really excited about this for a couple reasons. One, I've never played Kill Team in Boston before, so that'll be cool. But two, this will be my first time playing in a Kill Team GT. I've done some other tabletop games with some larger tournaments, but there just haven't really been GTs local, where kind of in the middle of nowhere in Vermont a little bit. So I'm really excited to try my hand at a longer event, a multi-day event. I'm bringing Blades of Cain, and fully expecting to finally run into that like wall of ceramite that everyone's been dreading, and just die to a bunch of elite matchups. But regardless, really excited to be going to a GT finally, and definitely looking to do some more. We'll figure out where the best ones are going to be for our group to get to. But we're looking at maybe trying to do some stuff in Toronto. Montreal was looking at maybe putting on a multi-day tournament in the next couple months. So as soon as I figure that out, I'll put something up on the channel so y'all know where we'll be. After that, February 15th, we're having the Valentine's Day Massacre here in Burlington, Vermont at VGA in the mall. 3-round tournament. We'll be running that. And then April 12th is Mayhem Con in Lebanon, New Hampshire, where Will is running I believe, possibly 4-round. Let me double check, actually. I've got BCP pulled up. Okay, not sure yet on that. I believe it's going to end up being a 3-round tournament, but as soon as I've got more details, we'll throw it up on here. We really want to promote that. So, I believe those are all of the imminent events that we have coming up, where some of the folks from Adeptus Adequate will be there. It'll be me, Will, I think Phil, and 1 or 2 others if we can convince them to jump in the car. So we're really excited about that. Really excited about Kill Team in Vermont and Northern New England right now. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of good interest, a lot of excitement. So thank you very much for stopping by with the video. If you haven't, please like and subscribe. It really helps out with the algorithms. And we'll be continuing to bring you content about some very adequate Kill Team in Vermont, as well as the Blades of Cain content that I've been working on. And Will and I are also working on putting together a series that we'll start uploading soon, talking about some, we're calling it Heavy Thoughts, but basically some ideas from strategic writing for Magic the Gathering and like sports psychology and game theory, stuff that's not really about the mechanics of Kill Team specifically or what individual models can do, but about ways to think about the game and make better strategic decisions that applies to most tabletop games, or really most games in general. It's the sort of stuff that we think about a lot and talk about amongst ourselves, and it's the sort of thing that it's kind of hard to do video content on because it's a little bit more esoteric and it's not as flashy as cool models. But we do think it's really important to try and become a better player. It's something that we're working on and that we want to try and start a discussion with all of you. So if that's something that you're interested in, like and subscribe. We'll have those videos starting to come out soon. Until then, thank you very much for stopping by, and hope you all have nice holidays. Bye.